Okay, welcome to the session number 2 on health sector challenges and development. We are exactly on time at 10:30, so we'll have to do as good as a job as the first session. So I'll be brutal on timing. I don't want to waste time talking, so let's move to. We have 3 interesting papers. I have looked at them quickly. I can't say exactly if there is a connection. They are among them, but they all look very interesting. And we have 2 on Bangladesh and 1 on India, I believe. Yes. So we start with impact of community clinics on health outcomes, a natural experiment for Bangladesh. The presenter of a esteemed team is Dr. Moogdho Mahzab. Thank you. So sorry about that.
No problem.
The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and it's really great to be back at the SANEM World Bank Forum this year. I'm Dr. Moogdho Mahzab. I'm a postdoc at Stanford University. So this is a joint work, and before I go into it, I really want to thank the online participant. It's really late in South Asia, but really good to see that they're participating in the conference. So this is a joint work with Nina. So she's a PhD candidate, upcoming superstar in economics. Then Kate, who is associate director at Duke Development Lab, and Erica Field, a professor of economics at Duke University. And today's presentation is going to be on community health clinics and their impact on health. So, I mean, I think if there is only one thing that doesn't need any motivation, that is health, especially child and maternal mortality, right? Because in developing countries, there are many problems, and one of the biggest problems that we know is child and maternal mortality. And there is these are some numbers, like these are so striking. 10.7 million children under the age 5 years die every year. And a big portion of them dies under a month, and another portion is stillborn. Similar story when it comes to maternal mortality. Still 830 women die at pregnancy or childbirth related complication in the world every day. And most importantly, all these problems or all these child and health mortality problems are coming from the developing countries. So developing countries are trying their best to minimize that. And there are many methods from the government, from the private sector, from the donor agencies have been tried out. One of them is community healthcare, right? So there are many developing countries who are using community healthcare in different methods. And there's some literature on that has found that this community health center can actually reduce child and maternal mortality. Though those are not very causally measured, there's some identification problem, but still there is a link. We can see that it actually can help reducing child and maternal mortality. So Bangladesh has as we know, has been doing pretty well in terms of coming from a least developed country to a middle income country, and there are other social indicators which Bangladesh is showing progress. It's the same when it comes to child mortality. So it reduced by 66% from 1993 to 2018. However, there is still some problem in terms of infant mortality compared to under 5 mortality. So even if you see in South Asia, Bangladesh is in the middle. It is progressing well, but there are a lot of opportunity to do better. Similar story for maternal mortality rate, 70% reduction in the last 2 decades. But still, there is some geographical variation when you see the rate of decrease in maternal mortality. In this paper, just one second. Just one second, give me 1 second. So this is the old presentation, actually. You can check because, so sorry, I'll just take 1 minute from you. This is the old one, not the one I sent you.
This one?
Yeah, that's one, yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so coming back, so in this paper particularly what we want to understand a simple question. to understand if there is an impact of community healthcare clinic on child and maternal mortality. So this is again, as I said, many developing countries have this policy, but it has been very difficult to causally measure the impact. And in this paper, due to a natural experiment, we would be able to measure that. Just to give you some history about community clinics in Bangladesh. So in 1996, the government at that time started planning community health clinics. These are little health center targeting 6,000 people in every union councils, and which would be, there would be healthcare provider, there would be some community assistants, all coming from the same community. So it's almost like a public-private partnership where the private entities will, give their lands, give a building, and government will provide the equipments needed for these services. So what happened during 1996 to 2001, there was around 8,000 functioning community clinics. But then again, when the next government came, so there is a political change, the program was completely shut down within 2001 to 2007. Now the question is that why? So one argument is that because it was somehow empowering rural women, that time government didn't take that nicely. And because it was started by another government, they didn't want to continue it. And eventually, when the government came back in 2009, they started rebuilding community clinics again. I think if there is one thing that you want to take away from my presentation, this picture. So this is what, so the first one is showing that this is the distribution of community clinics at the sub-district Upazila level into prior to 2001, right? And this is, look at this, from 2002 to 2007, this is the picture of functioning community clinics. So it's almost all of them shut down. There are a few running at that time. And then again, in post 2019, the community clinic revived. So this is the political change that I'm going to use as an instrument and do a DID estimation to see the impact. To go deeper, so the data that I'm using, so because I want to understand the access to community clinic and how it has an impact on health, so I need the geolocations of the community clinics. So I had to do some phone survey to collect the geolocation of this community clinics with some administrative data. And then I also need some household level health outcomes, right? So the surveys in Bangladesh, the census that we have, it is not representative at the union level. Those are at best at the Upazila level, but I really need data that represent at the union council household level. So I'm using this Erica Field and then Glenster Buchmann work on Borishal. They have been doing their 3 rounds of survey, which is giving me the health outcome from the households. So basically, we'll focus on this area. This is Borishal division. If you know the Bangladesh map, all these blue dots are the households in the villages. So these are the villages that I have information, and all these red dots are the community clinics. So basically, I'm using this setting to do the identification. Just to be more clear, so I'm running a DID where my outcome variable could be all the mortality variables, and the main variables over here is this interaction, which is clinic open. So I can measure how, so because I have the geolocation of the household, I know exactly how far the community clinic is, 1 kilometer, 3 kilometer, 5 kilometer. And then I also know when the child was born in that household. So I know whether it was after or before there was access to community clinic. So this is the setting, and because I don't have data, I can't show you the tweeted, but there's a bunch of controls that we're having. Of course, we're having the village fixed effect, the birth year fixed effect, and all the mother characteristics controls, village level controls, including birth order, gender of the child, mother, age of mother, the first year, as many variables as we can to compensate the lack of data to show preterm. So I run this regression. And I think this is the first result, and that I would like to spend some time. So if you see the first year mortality over here, this is our outcome variable, and these are the distance in 3 forms. Let's focus on only 1 kilometer and 3 kilometer. So the control mean is over here 0.055 in the control household who did not have access to community clinics when a child was born. And you see around 90% in most of the setting, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years mortality when having an access actually decrease mortality. When you go to 3 kilometer, it still is statistically significant. However, it is not, the economic significance is less than 1 kilometer. So this is the clear sign, and then again we try to control as much as we could, and then this is the results that we are getting. So there is a clear impact on reduction of child mortality using this political history setting. How am I doing on time? 3 minutes. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so then again, we ask the question that what is going on? So we now see an impact. So there should be something about this community clinics that is driving these results. So in our survey data, we had this information about where the child was born, right? So you expect when there is a access to community clinics, though it's not mandated that community clinics should help women to have children, but they were actually providing the service. And because it was a community clinic, women are more relaxed, and they were not hesitant to go there and reaching out for help. So you can clearly see what happened. So again, same regression. However, now the dependent variables are whether born in a government clinic, which is a proxy over here. We're thinking as community clinic, private clinic, and at home. There are not many private clinics in the rural areas, but clearly we can see there is a reduction of the children born at home, and there is an increase of children born in some government clinic within 1 kilometer, 3 kilometer, 1 and 5 kilometer, at least statistically significant. So because people are more going to this, having access to this community clinics, having born over there, that could drive the result of a reduction in child mortality. And lastly, like this again, this is a still ongoing work. We're trying to see like from where this death reduction is coming. So a big portion of this reduction is 5-year mortality that is reducing, and there are many like early children problem where children can't survive within a year. The spasm related problem that is reducing, and also there is a problem of tetanus that is also reducing. So these are the some heterogeneity or some channels that we are trying to see where this reduction is coming. I think I will save my 1 last minute for question answer, and I'll stop here. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. You even with the interruption of the changing of the presentation, you were saving time. Questions? Okay. So one in the middle there, yes. Then in the back, and then you.
Hi, my first question is about your model. So I saw that you have the interaction effect there. So I was wondering if you have also kept the level effects, because that's when you know that
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And the second is since you're not able to show parallel trends, I was wondering if you were looking into the Roth and Rambachan estimate of the reliability of your coefficients, and if you could talk about that.
Yeah, so first answer is yes. Second one is that yes, we are using the Galloway estimate. Using all the recent, we know that DID has developed a lot. Every day there is a new estimator coming out of, and we are trying it out, and thank you. So this is still work in progress. So we are working with starting from the safest estimator and trying all the bunches of them. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aisha, and my question is, you wanted to attribute that community clinic shutdown has resulted in this, gave you this result, but the political leadership has also changed during the same time. So could you please further explain, like, how do you identify the effect of clinics? Thank you.
Great question. So basically, we don't see it differently. So 1996 to 2001, that was basically the program of Awami League, and at that time, Prime Minister said, "This is my flagship program." And then when they lost power in 2001, exactly from 2002, as I've shown you in the map, from 2002 to 2008, it was almost all dysfunctional. And then again 2009 it came. So we are not going too much into that into the political philosophy of it, but still it was a political decision to shut it down.
Yeah. My question is again methodological. So you have 2 time periods where you have some treatment. I wonder if the previous treatment that happened between 1996 to 2001 would have some persistent effect on your outcome in a later time?
That's a great question, Morbi. So what happened? There is some in some specification what we have tried. So so the interaction dummy, it's a reopen year. So let's say if there is a one community clinic was reopened post 2009, that is one let's say treatment, and there would be another treatment if it was opened from 1996 to 2001. So the exposure would be, let's say, a bit more. But then again, the childbirth that we are measuring is only within that period, right? So that somehow counters some of the extra exposure that we could expect. But yeah, we are controlling for that in another specification.
Okay, one more question here.
Yeah, thank you, Moogdho, for your very good comprehensive presentation. It's true that in Bangladesh, maternal mortality, child mortality reduced significantly over the years. But there is a union health center in every union, apart from this community clinic. And also Upazila Health Center also very, due to the communication development, rural road development, people are also taking services from Upazila Health Complex. So how you disaggregate that the role of community clinic, because they are giving say 28 types of medicine free, but most of the community clinic, they don't have any delivery services. So how do you measure this? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yusuf. So the point about the first one, we have some specification where we control for Upazila fixed effect. So that is at least control for some of the variation that we could expect, especially on Upazilas. Second is that, yes, you're right. So there is no mandate, as I've mentioned, that they shouldn't help like to have child delivery. But in our short survey, we have found they actually do help. So people who are, you are absolutely right, due to the transportation betterment right now, the communication is better, but still there are many areas on the south that they can't actually go to the Upazila Health Complex. So they eventually take help from there. So that actually helped.
Okay, very good. I have a question that is actually linked to two questions that came on the chat. So you clearly said at the outset that your main mechanism is access. So adding clinic is what matters. So it's very supply driven. My colleagues in the health GP would be happy because we build clinics at the moment. So, but there is also demand side, right? That you seem to want to capture in the second set of regression. So that's important because once you have access, the supply is there. You must have some differences that come from the demand side, the fact that people want to access. So the general question is, do you have any of that? And the two questions that came here, one is interesting. It says, is there any heterogeneity in access to clinics by area, political alignment with the center? So I don't know if the clinics have any political alignment, but that's one question. The other one is the employing local people at the community clinics help to increase the number of patients coming to the clinic. So again, something from the demand side. And then I stop there. Yes.
Oh, great question. I'll start from the back. Both of them are very important. The second one, the local people. So basically, that's the motivation. That's the structure of community clinics, that you actually involve local people that so people are more comfortable reaching out to them. Number one. Number two, that's such a great question. So that's the point we're working now, the political motivation. So far, we haven't found any. But if we can see if the local leaders somehow are connected to the government, which was not in power between 2002 and 2007, whether that has an heterogeneous impact or not. So we are working on that. So that's a great point. And I take the demand side story with my open arms, and we are thinking about it. It's a great story. For now, we only were able to control for different kind of household characteristics, mother education, mother income. That is giving some points, but yes, we would like to think more from the demand side as well.
Okay, so thank you very much for the presentation and the discussion. We have to move to the second presentation, which is on India, unintended consequences of latrine constructions, externality on water quality and health in India. Mr.
Okay.
Not yet doctor, PhD student, but Mr.
He just became doctor.
Oh,
He
so,
just
so
became-
doctor then, Dr. Kazuki Motohashi. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Kazuki. I'm a PhD student at Tufts University, almost graduating. And in this paper, I would like to talk about the unintended consequences of sanitation. So sanitation here is about toilet construction or latrine construction. So as you know, sanitation is important for improving human health. So poor access to sanitation facilities such as latrines is associated with open defecation, so defecating outside. That is a leading cause of diarrheal diseases and mortality. So kind of child mortality, which is related to the first presentation. Yet worldwide, 700 million people practice open defecation. And in India, it's 350 million people, so largest number of people there. And that had a number of deaths in 2016. So developing countries have now adopted sanitation policies to address this issue by subsidizing the construction of latrines. For example, in India, there's a policy called Swachh Bharat Mission started in Prime Minister Modi administration, which led to a large-scale latrine construction. And also in China, under Xi Jinping administration, there's a policy called Toilet Revolution. So it's important to assess the effectiveness of this large-scale policy. And here, this paper shows the unintended consequences of latrine construction. So when you look at the past studies, they usually focus on the direct positive health effects. So latrine construction improves child health, reducing diarrhea or reducing child mortality by reducing open defecation and exposure to fecal matter near human habitation. And this health benefit is already well known, but there can be also a side effect or negative externalities, which is the river pollution due to dumping of empty fecal sludge from the latrines. So latrines in rural India are not connected to sewer lines, so they are very different from the ones in urban area in the US. And they are instead going to accumulate the fecal sludge underground in a big hole. And if the pit, the big hole become full, it needs to be regularly emptied. Then the empty fecal sludge should be ideally transported and treated at the infrastructure, such as sewage treatment plants. But due to insufficient infrastructure, that fecal sludge can be just dumped into the rivers, causing river pollution. And if there's a river pollution, that can offset the direct positive health effects. So showing this aspect, a side effect is the contribution of my paper. So the research questions are first, what are the indirect negative externalities of latrine construction on real water quality and health relative to the open defecation in rural India? And I showed that it actually increases river pollution and that water pollution externality reduces the health effects. Okay. The second sub-question is a heterogeneity analysis, looking at how do these negative externalities differ by the complementary investment in the treatment of fecal sludge. So I show that if there's a sufficient infrastructure to treat the fecal sludge, then the negative externality is minimized. So I examined these two questions in the context of Swachh Bharat Mission in India that subsidized the construction of over 100 million latrines, which is a very large-scale program. Okay. So to look at the causal effect of latrine construction on water quality and health, I adopt instrumental variable design. So in the second stage, the outcomes I care is in the Y are either log of fecal coliform. So fecal coliform is the indicator of fecal contamination level in the rivers. So it's a water quality measure. Or in the health regression, I use the diarrhea mortality, especially the infant mortality rate, coming from the diarrheal diseases. And then as a main treatment indicator, I have a latrine, DT, which is the number of latrines per square kilometer, so normalized number of latrines. And then I have a precipitation as a control. And this is the panel data at the district level or monitoring station level. So I have a monitoring station fixed effects or district fixed effects and year fixed effects. Okay. And in the first stage, I'm going to instrument this number of latrines by this ACC times pulse. So ACC is the available water capacity, which I can explain here. So this instrument, the available water capacity, is a proxy of soil infiltration rates. Soil infiltration rate is how much water can percolate through soil. And available water capacity is opposite concept, how much water can be preserved in the soil. So low ACC means a high infiltration rate. And this matters for the number of latrines or latrine construction because of the government technical guideline of India. So according to the guideline, in the area with high infiltration rate area, there's a larger risk of groundwater contamination caused by latrines. So water percolates a lot. So then the fecal matter or the pathogen inside the fecal matter can easily flow to the nearby wells in that area. So there's a larger groundwater contamination risk. To prevent that, the technical guidelines specifies that households need to have safeguard measures. For example, keeping longer distances between latrines or wells, or putting additional materials in their toilets or latrines to prevent the percolation. So it's more difficult or costly to build latrines in the high infiltration area. So that's the idea of the kind of instrument here. And according to the kind of expectation, in the first stage, I find that in the high ACC area, which means low infiltration rate, there's a larger number of latrines constructed. Okay. Then another important assumption in this instrumental variable design is the exclusion restriction. So here, the ACC, the soil characteristics should affect the outcomes only through changing the number of latrines. So to test this, I run a reduced form event study regressions to test whether ACC affect outcomes through other channels. And as you can see in this event study plots, there was no differential effects prior to the start of the policy. And this is encouraging because the guideline I explained started to apply after the policy. So before the policy, there was no that guideline or safeguard measures. And so before the policy, the effect of ACC on the outcomes should be through other channels, not through the number of latrines, but I find no differential effects. So that's kind of one indirect way to test the exclusion restriction. But after the policy starts, the guidelines started to apply, and then there was an effect on water pollution and also improvement in health. Okay, so this is my main result. So first, I find that latrine construction increases river pollution. So let's focus on the second column, the IB estimates. I find that one additional number of latrines per square kilometer increase fecal coliform or fecal contamination by 3%. And when I translate into a total policy effect, average policy effect, based on how much number of latrines constructed over time, then it's total 70% increase in river pollution, which is a very huge impact on river water quality. And when I look at the health effects, latrine construction improves health overall. So there are still direct positive health effects here. And that outweighed the negative kind of river pollution externality. So here, the total policy effect is minus 0.8, and the mean of dependent variable of the diarrhea mortality is 2.2, so it's about 30% decrease in diarrhea mortality. So lastly, in my analysis, I did a heterogeneity analysis by treatment of fecal sludge to investigate more into the mechanism, which in this case, the dumping of fecal sludge from latrines to the rivers. And that dumping can be minimized if the empty fecal sludge is transported and treated at the infrastructure. And one of the kind of important infrastructure is sewage treatment plants, which are commonly used to co-treat urban sewer and rural fecal sludge in India. So the idea is to compare the effects in area with higher capacity and lower capacity of the sewage treatment plants. And I expect that in the high capacity area, it's properly treated, so less dumping smaller water pollution, and then the larger positive health effects. But instead, in the low capacity area, there should be more dumping, so more water pollution, and water pollution kind of reduce the health effects, smaller positive health effects. And this is the result of the heterogeneity analysis. So as expected in the panel A, this is the water quality results. I find that the negative effects of latrine construction on water quality are concentrated in the case of low capacity of sewage treatment plants in that area. Either at when I use the state level capacity difference in column 3 or a district level capacity variation in column 4 and 5. And when I look at the health effects in panel B, overall it's health improving by the latrine construction. But the magnitude of the health improvement is different between districts. So when I look at the low capacity area, the magnitude is limited. So when you compare the column 2 and 3, it shows that some water pollution might be partially offsetting the health effects. Not completely offsetting, but partially. Okay, so then as a conclusion, first to sum up, first I find that latrine construction leads to unintended river pollution, so 70% increase in fecal contamination of rivers, and that's concentrated in areas with lower treatment capacities in terms of sewage treatment plants. And secondly, it's overall health improvement, so 30% decrease in diarrhea mortality, which is a kind of good news for the Swachh Bharat mission policy. But lastly, in the third column, a more important key takeaway is that water pollution externality is partially offsetting some positive health effects. So positive health effects become 2/3 smaller in the area with lower treating capacity. So the key takeaways are first that latrine construction alone, without complementing with the treatment of fecal sludge, can cause negative externalities, river pollution. Then enabling environment that includes effective treatment of fecal sludge can make sanitation policy more effective. So having a sewage treatment plants kind of treatment can increase the health benefit even more. So I hope this has an implication for the Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0, which it's in the second phase right now. So government can invest more into the treatment of fecal sludge, not only constructing latrines. And that is, I think, also important for other South Asian countries as well, because latrine construction is in good progress in other countries like Bangladesh, but still the treatment of fecal sludge is kind of a remaining issue right now. Yeah. Thank you very much, and I welcome any questions and comments.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So the floor is open for questions. Yes.
Hi. My question is that do you think this finding, you will find that the latrine construction's negative externalities disproportionately impact marginalized sections of the society? So if you categorize areas based on marginalized population, would you think that you'll find them getting more adversely affected?
Okay, so you want to answer? Yes.
Yeah, thank you for a good question. Yes, in terms of the kind of health effects, if people are more marginalized, it means that people kind of might drink kind of drinking source might be a river water, and there are no defensive kind of mechanism. So I think, I haven't checked it, but I think another good exercise will be like looking at the heterogeneity by that kind of marginalization indicator, by income level. Thank you for the suggestion.
I have a question, if I may. Your counterfactual, or somehow the one way of looking at the counterfactual is looking at areas that have more capacity to process the sludge and less capacity. But your starting point is that or even your concluding point is that there are externalities to latrine construction alone. But isn't it the counterfactual really not having latrine? Because what happened with the open defecation per se? That why are they these fecal matter, even if it doesn't go concentrated in the latrine, it goes somewhere. So I'm not sure that you have considered that, or is it really a matter of more technical issue that when it's concentrated is more dangerous? I don't know. So that's my question.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So yeah, I'm looking at the kind of differential effects of latrine construction relative to the openification on the water quality and health. And openification can also cause real water pollution because people are like defecating outside, and if there's a rain, that will wash away to the rivers. But kind of my observation in the field, I also did some field work, and in the case of openification, the fecal matter is kind of scattered across like larger areas, and it will be only washed if there's kind of floods or like rainfall. But in the case of like latrines, the fecal matter is like concentrated underground, and that is kind of sucked by the truckers, and that is directly dumped in the river. So the total amount of fecal sludge reaching into the river in the case of latrines might be even larger. And my data kind of supports that kind of hypothesis difference in between the openification and latrines.
Okay, I thank you. Yes.
So thank you for nice. Thank you for your excellent presentation. I have one query, you can say. As you said that increase in toilet construction reduces diarrhea, there is a positive externality, and on the other hand, you are saying there is the management of waste, fecal sludge is basically causing river pollution. But there is a time lag, right? Because the speed that constructed, that takes at least 10 years or some more to, that up to 10 years they use that, and then it comes, for, emptying that kind of a pit, and then they can reuse it. So then, and the mission that was taken maybe 5 years back, but in this period, if toilet was constructed, that fecal sludge might have not, disposed of into any of the rivers. So how you have, taken care of that situation? Because it's not that on the same time you are, disposing the fecal sludge.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and yeah, I really understand your point. So yeah, toilet construction is very easy. Like it can happen in like several months. So you can just construct in several months at the household level. But the sewage treatment plant is an infrastructure that will kind of require planning phase, and like just constructing it might also take a lot of time. So it's a 5 years to 10 years project. So during this sludge automation time, like latrine construction rapidly happen, but maybe the infrastructure project might be lagging, so it will take more time. So this river pollution might be a transitionary problem in the short run, but maybe in the long term, if there's an infrastructure project like completed more and more, then the problem might go away. And yeah, I understand there's a kind of time difference. Yeah.
Okay, so we have no more question. No, there's
Sorry.
one question
I'm
far
sitting all the way in the back.
in the back. Yes.
Yeah, no, because I think I had a similar question, whether your estimates are a little inflated if you're not considering that the Swachwara admission changes policy after the first year of implementation to twin pit latrines, which are not going to be emptied in the next 5 to 10 years. So your estimates may be too high because you're assuming zero construction of treatment plants during the time and a complete emptying of all the built latrines, all more or less at the same time. So how do you account for the staggered effect, and also for the fact that most of the latrines that were built in the second phase are twin pit instead of single pit ones?
We have a lot of expertise on latrines. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for all the great points. Yeah, based on your knowledge on the sanitation issues, and yeah, as I said, like twin pit latrines are more readily available, and that is So this dumping is kind of mostly relevant for septic tanks and one pit latrine with only like one big hole. Based on my field observation, there's still one pit or one pit latrine and septic tank are dominant in rural India, and two pit latrines are very expensive, so household might not like kind of afford it. But there's a kind of increase in trend, so maybe I should also think about that technology type as well. And one caveat of this kind of analysis is in the heterogeneity analysis, I'm using the baseline level of treatment capacity of the sewage treatment plants because of some concern on heterogeneity. But there might be some reaction on increasing investment in sewage treatment plants during after the policy. When I check some data, it's still kind of limited. Not so much dramatic increase in sewage treatment plants, but in the future there will be more. So maybe I should kind of also consider that aspect. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, and congratulations again on becoming a doctor. But well, let's move to the next and final presentation of the session on parental health shocks and child health in Bangladesh. Mr. Shahadath Hossain, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So the paper, as you have already heard, that it's parental health shocks and child health in Bangladesh. Child malnutrition and growth deprivation are major concerns in most developing countries. For example, as of 2019 in Bangladesh, 28% of all child are growth deprived, like they are 2 standard deviation below the WHO growth standard. So, and also the surviving child, like Moogdho has already motivated us about the child mortality aspect, but those who survive, for them, any health issues in early childhood could also negatively affect their cognitive development, can also reduce their lifetime earnings at a significant margin. So as a result, any shock during the early childhood has a significant implication throughout their lifetime. And health shocks at a household level not only affects the adults in the household, it could also have implications for the other household members, particularly the children. And there were 2 broad mechanisms through which health shocks to the parents could affect the children. First, indirectly, because in most developing countries with no access to or limited access to health insurance, particularly in Bangladesh, only less than 1% of the households have access to health insurance. In that case, a health shock has significant implications for the household finances, because on an average, they spend a lot more on health. And if they spend a lot on health, they're going to have limited fund to invest on the children. If they're going to reduce their food consumption, they're going to reduce health spending. So indirectly, a health shock could affect the children. Also directly, like medical literature shows that children in a living in a stressful environment could have significantly affected by the stress in the household. And medical literature shows that it inhibits growth hormones. So children don't grow much if they're living in a stressful environment. So both directly and indirectly, parental health shocks or illness shocks could affect the children. So the question I'm going to ask in this study is that, does parental illness affect child height, particularly the outcome I'll be looking at in Bangladesh? And if it does, then I'll be also interested to find out through which mechanism. Is it directly or through indirectly? Okay. So the data I'm going to use is the panel survey. It's called Bangladesh Integrated Household Survey, and I'm going to use this panel of 2012 and 2015. And it's a survey of 5,000 households in 315 villages in Bangladesh. And at the baseline, in 2012, I'm going to keep all healthy parents. And then I'll see parents who develop health limitations or illnesses after 2012, between 2012-15. So those households will be treated households in my case. So the treatment variable I'm going to use is the activities of daily living, limitations in activities of daily living, or we call it ADL limitation. So the data collects 3 different indicators, which is whether the parents could walk, sit, or carry some weight or not. And the data is collected in a Likert scale, like 1 being they can do it comfortably, 4 means they cannot do it at all. And so the way I'm going to define is any household who have, like particularly father, mother, or both, have any limitations in all those 3 indicators, like they cannot walk comfortably, they cannot carry some weight comfortably, or they cannot sit and stand up comfortably. I also tried to use like a different, like a sensitivity analysis using the like severity of the illness. And if I get time, I'll also show those results. So as a result, I find at the baseline, like between the baseline and the end line, 2012 and 15, 25% households or parents have ADL limitation. So they have an illness. And 75% households are the control households in my case. They don't have any illness or they didn't develop any illness. The outcome variable I'm going to look at is the child height, which is one of the standard measures developed by WHO, which is height for age z-score. So height for age z-score, what it does, it takes a sample children, compare with the WHO growth standard, and finds the differences between the sample children and the WHO growth standard. So a 0 z-score means like they don't have any problems. So and negative z-score means the children are growth deprived. So the identification strategy I'm going to use relies on 3 different data facts. The first data fact is that at the baseline, I do not find the height distribution differs significantly between the treated and the control households, which is very important. Like that gives me a sense that like it almost follows a like randomized control trial setting. Also in the second data fact is that, and that I will not have time to show, like you have to trust me on this, the household characteristics and the household heads characteristics, I do not find any significant difference in any of those characteristics at the baseline. So the covariates, we can say, are balanced at the baseline. The third one that I want to show is that in 2015, any other household members, apart from the parents, do not have any more likely to have any ADL limitation. So which gives me a sense that like these households, the treated households, are not any different from the control households, or because like none of the other household members have any more likely to have any ADL limitation. So this, what I can say is that there is no like household level confounder that's making these treated households more likely to develop ADL limitations. So based on these 3 data facts, I can argue that like, if there is any confounder that confounds my treatment effect, has to satisfy 3 conditions. It has to be unobserved, it has to be specific to only one household member, and it has to affect the children's height only after the development of ADL limitation. So satisfying these 3 conditions is very difficult for any confounder. I could not think about any confounder that satisfies all those 3 conditions. So as a result, I argue that the treatment assignment is as good as random. Okay. On top of that, still I use a method which is called W-robust estimation, which is a selection on observable approach. It uses the household's characteristics at the baseline to estimate the likelihood of treatment, and it separately estimates the outcome estimate. So the way it works, it estimates the treatment equation and the outcome equation separately and requires only one of the 2 estimations to be correctly specified. On top of that, I also did like a OLS with and without covariates. I also did like a Mahalanobis distance matching, propensity score matching, like almost all estimators give me very similar results. Okay, so let me go to the results. So at the base, like what I find here, the treatment variable is the parental illness. The outcome variable is child height. And what I find, the first column shows without any controls, and second column shows with controls. Again, those 2 estimates are not significantly different. So focusing on column 2, I can see that parental illness leads to about 0.18 standard deviation lower child height. And using this IPWRA, inverse probability weighted regression adjustment, which is a W-robust estimator, I find very similar result, like about 0.18 standard deviation lower child height. And other PSM and propensity score matching and Mahalanobis distance matching gives me very similar coefficients. So overall, this 0.18 standard deviation is what I can say is in the magnitude is very similar to the other shocks, like in Rwanda about crop failure, and in Ethiopia, drought. Like these sort of like once in an event shocks have a very similar effect to the parental illness shocks. So that's an important takeaway for me or for us, is that parental illness has a significant impact that's almost equivalent to some sort of big shocks. And also I do a back of the envelope calculation, which shows that if we could remove the parental illness, we could reduce the gap between Bangladeshi children and the WHO growth standard by 3.5 percentage point. I also did like a bunch of robustness checks and sensitivity analysis. The first one I will show is that using low ADL limitations and high ADL limitations, like I find like the treatment intensity, if you focus column 3 and 6, we see if low intensity has a smaller effect, the main treatment effect was like 0.18. If we use low intensity, it's 0.15. And if we use high intensity of ADL limitations, we find about 0.22 standard deviation. So, but however, these estimates are not statistically different from each other. Then also because I argued that the treatment assignment is as good as random, but if households could predict that based on some sort of like baseline health characteristics that they are going to develop ADL limitations, then treatment assignment is not going to be as good as random. So what I show here is that households could not, using their baseline acute condition or chronic condition, household could not predict that they're going to develop ADL limitations. So here the treatment variables are at the baseline, outcome variables, parents developing ADL limitations in 2015. I don't see anything. So the takeaway is households could not predict that they're going to develop ADL limitations based on their baseline characteristics, health characteristics. Then I did like bunch of the heterogeneity analysis between the father and mother. I find very similar effect for father being ill or mother being ill. I find similar results for head and non-head households. And that's also interesting takeaway, like the household level safety net is not protecting these children. Like father being not the household head does not help those children in a way. I also find very similar results across different age groups. I find similar results for boys and girls and also by birth orders. Then I move to the mechanism. I find that parental resource allocation plays a very important role. And here I have like two different indicators. One is the food insecurity, like whether the households had no food for any one meal, at least one meal in last 2 weeks. And I also have a food intake index where I bring in carbohydrate and protein consumptions. Although I didn't show it here, I find the households reduce protein consumption significantly rather than carbohydrate consumption. And that explains why they suffer from height loss, because they reduce protein consumption. So overall, I find like the food insecurity, these households are 4.4% more likely to be food insecure. And also they are about 0.08 standard, they have 0.08 standard deviation lower food consumption. Then, although I do not have any proper indicator for stress, medical literature shows that like if children who grew up in a stressful environment, they're more likely to have disease conditions like diarrhea, fever, cough, all those conditions. So I have this data only for children who are less than 2 years. So, but I find like these children are more likely to have diarrhea if the parents are ill. So in a sense, I can say that like this parental stress mechanism is also playing some role, but although I do not have any solid result there. So as a result, overall, like that's all for me. I have much time, so I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, the floor is open for questions. Microphone, please.
I just wanted to ask, how would you compare the parental death shock to any other kind of significant shock, especially with respect to the mechanisms, like maybe a psychological mechanism or something else?
Yeah. So like the way I use like this observed characteristics in the WFS estimation, I looked at any other economic and health shocks. So I control for that. So in this particular case, I'm only looking at illness, not death of the parents. So only the illness of the parents. So particularly death is not happening in this particular context.
Yes, you had a question?
Yeah, so when do you consider that illness? Is it the illness right before birth or any time in your lifetime?
Yeah, can I add to this question, because the timing of you have two surveys and you measure the ADL at the end, but is the ADL something as a consequence of the long-term illness that has developed during the period, or so? That's a similar question to the sequencing of the.
So the way it works, I have like two surveys in 2012 and 15. I start with healthy parents. In 2012, 12, none of the parents have any ADL limitations. Even like I also look at whether they're going to be parents in the future. So if to-be parents have illness, I also drop them. So current parents and to-be parents all are healthy at the baseline, and they develop some sort of ADL limitations between 2012 and 2015. And the second question was that I also looked at one of the sensitivity tests or robustness check I did. Parents could not use their baseline conditions, such as chronic condition, acute condition, to predict that they will be facing ADL limitations in the future. So I can say that this development of ADL between 2012 and 15 is random.
Okay, so the lady and then you.
Hi, so my question is, how much of this illness shock and its effects are similar to an income shock? Because when parents are sick, presumably they will have less labor supply and there will be less income and possibly wealth in the household. And how much of that would be beyond the income/wealth channel?
Yeah. So what I found in my data is that the health shock leads to about 30% higher medical spending to the households. So it's a big expenditure shock first. And I also find they reduce labor supply. So it's also will be an income shock. So, but I don't have the mechanism to separate out the income shock versus the expenditure shock, but I'm looking at overall illness shock. That's the one thing. Then the second part of the question is that it's also difficult for me to do any mechanism analysis like some sort of like what proportion of the treatment effect is because of the two mechanisms I talk about, direct and indirect. But the problem is doing any formal mechanism analysis requires like two channels to be independent from each other, so which is very difficult in my case. Like financial stress could be also lead to the financial shock could lead to stress. So those two mechanisms are not independent. So I cannot do any separate the proper mechanism analysis or mediation analysis. Yeah.
One question and then your question.
Hi. I have three questions. First is how generalizable are your results if you could talk about your sample? And do you observe differential impact on male versus female children? And have you seen or can you see other dependent variables other than height? Thank you.
I add to this one another heterogeneity from the chat box, which is, have you considered the differential impact according to the age of the children, and perhaps even beyond the first 5 years of birth, beyond the later years?
Okay, so to answer let me start with your second question, which is related to the other two. I looked at the heterogeneity by age, by gender, by birth order. I do not find significant differences. So both male and female, boys and girls, are equally affected. So that's in terms of heterogeneity. By generalizability is like this is a rural sample. So, and almost 80% of Bangladeshi populations live in rural villages. So it's almost, we can say, apart from urban areas, or pure urban areas, this is generalizable for most of the country. Then the third point is, I also looked at weight, and that didn't get the chance to present it, but I argue that in the papers that weight is not going to be an proper measure because households alter their food intake, and they reduce protein consumption and increase or maintain their carbohydrate consumption. In that case, I find that households actually are able to maintain the weight of the children because of the carbohydrate consumption. And they lose weight because they reduce protein consumption. Like particularly they reduce meat consumption, they reduce egg consumption, all those things.
Yeah, quick question. So one thing, Shahadath, I wonder, so your whole idea about ADL, so this is coming from a kind of a reported measure, right? As you said, and you found 25% treated, 75% control, or the other way around. But the question is then it's not very objective, right? Because you then decide to pick the cutoff, which one you say is like getting a binary treatment of 1, has some problem and does not have. So have you tried out changing this cutoff from, I don't know, whatever you're using? Because I remember there are 5 points when they're reporting. So does it change? One point was very interesting when you said you found some heterogeneity in terms of consumption expenditure, which was proxied by income. So if you control for household income, does your result hold or not? Thank you.
So the first one is the ADL limitations. In the health literature, health shock literature, they argue that ADL limitations is the best mechanism variable they have because of the other indicators such as chronic or illness indicators are subjective. So rather whether you can walk, whether you can carry some weight is more objective measure. So it's not sensitive to a socioeconomic background. So that I'm relying on other health literature on health shocks. Then the second question is I use the binary indicator having ADL limitations or not. Then I also look to the sensitivity by altering the definitions, and I find pretty similar results. And the third one is that the income, if I control income, it's going to be bad control because the income is going to be affected if they're sick. So in controlling income is not going to be an ideal thing to do in this context. Yeah.
Okay, we are off time, but go ahead.
Sorry. So ADL, what I didn't see why they get into the parents. If it is an environmental or genetical thing, they're going to affect both parents and the kids. But if it's in like a bus accident or accident on the road accident or something like that, then it will be a totally different scenario. So I don't know whether there's a big difference between why the parents got into ADL. Maybe that's something.
Yeah, quick answer. So it would have been ideal if surveys collected why they develop ADL, but in surveys mostly they don't collect why they develop the ADL. But to assure that, I show that at the baseline, that treated households and the control households children have identical distribution. So it's not genetical. If it would have been genetical, then we would see the children have different height at the baseline because of different. So it's only after they develop the ADL we see the difference in the height distribution.
Okay, so dear presenter, thank you very much for the very engaging presentation, and thank you for the questions, and we are on time. Thank you.